What's up YouTube? Today's video we're going to be going over the 1.1 billion DPS profile I saw on PoE Ninja. It is actually quite a treat to see a 1 billion DPS profile with no cheating, no shenanigans, no robbery, nothing. It's just a legit profile. I'm going to go over it. We're going to go over what build it is. And oh my, we're actually on the wrong game. So I've actually been playing Elden Ring the past few days. I'm at 1,000 deaths on the first boss because my character is under leveled, right? So let me know down below how many deaths it took or if you've played this game before because I'm about to uninstall the game. But let's go straight into it. 1.1 billion DPS profile power siphon and let's see how it's done. So before we start, like every single time you want to browse PoE Ninja, look for some new build. And what do you see here? 3 out of the top 4 Berserkers, by far the best class in the game, right? And this guy is obviously cheating. Now, I did do a video on this guy last time, but there's actually something I forgot to point out, right? So there's something very important, and this is a huge thing. If you want to learn how to cheat in life, this is what you need to do. Let me show it to you, right? So this guy is utilizing this node called Dance with Death, and this is notable from Brutal Restraint. And what this node does is it makes your critical strike chance lucky, right? And your damage with critical strikes is lucky. And this is actually huge, right? So if you take off this node, he loses 57% of his damage. Now, the reason why this node is important and why he's cheating is because when you allocate this node, you can't use your helmet, right? If you go into the profile here and you take off his helmet, you can see that this profile currently is still letting him use his helmet, even though he has Dance with Death allocated. So that's something I wanted to clear up from the latest video I did about the 2.3 billion guy. The guy is actually a cheater, right? So this build, however, is an accuracy stacking Berserker, and he's using an 11 link wand. Now, any accuracy stacking build, you get your damage, and the reason why it's so good with an 11 link or 12 link or 13 link or 14 link weapon is because with all of these support gems, the only thing that matters is how much base damage you have. And guess what? You get a bunch of base damage from the Storm Rider boots. And this is the foundation upon which accuracy stacking is built off of. Is 1 to 6 added attack lightning damage per 200 accuracy rating. It gives you 25% less accuracy rating, right? And at the same time, when you get the accuracy rating, you use the Juggernaut Undeniable node, which gives you plus 500 accuracy. And if it gives you 1% increased attack speed per 150 accuracy rating. So let's just say you have like 100,000 accuracy, you pretty much get like 600% attack speed, right? Which is an insane amount of attack speed for anyone to have. Now before, you would be stuck on the Juggernaut Ascendancy, but now you can be a Berserker. And with all of that attack speed, you can get Blitz Charges. So let's see over here. So this is Blitz Charges right here. There's a 40% more attack speed multiplier. So it multiplies all of that attack speed that you have by 40%. And then you have a 40% more damage multiplier aspect of the Carnage, and then you have a 40% or another 30% attack damage or 20% more from Berserk, right? So all of these multipliers added on each other, especially with the high amount of base attack speed you have, creates DPS monster, right? You're also able to scale your crit multi with Merlin's Fallacy, and this is because our crit chance is so high. So you can see here, Merlin's Fallacy is used. It gives us 288% crit multi. So we're able to get insane amounts of crit multi on this build, even though it's kind of hard for Wanderers to usually get crit multi. So absolutely crazy scaling with this synergy. So before we go into this profile, this is probably what people are always wondering. What are the most expensive items in the build, right? Because people always want to know how expensive is the build. And the answer is, it is quite expensive. This is coming from one of the richest people in the league who has this build currently. He has many mirror services of different items, and he pretty much paid off his life savings to make this character, right? So first off, we have the Precursor's Emblem of double accuracy roll and +1 frenzy. This is pretty much as good as a triple accuracy precursor. So you can see here, this is 24%. So this is 2 rolls of 20%, and then you have the Catalyst for the extra 20% to bring it up to 24%. And it also has +1 maximum frenzy charges. So this ring, I think the person bought it for 5 mirrors. I'm not really sure how much it was. And of course, you have the wand, which is super expensive. And then you have the perfect accuracy jewels with double synth mods. So these jewels are synthesized and they have 50 accuracy rating base. And it also has 2% increased damage on top, which is actually just crazy. You pretty much have to be live searching these jewels for like the whole league to buy them or slowly get them over time. and then rolling it with like T1 life and then T1 accuracy, and then having 2 mods that are good for you with increased effective curses and damage pen is actually just insanely rare. And to top it all off, the guy also has, of course, just 2 1 passive point voices, which is not too expensive, right? Nothing too crazy. I think they're like 150, 180x each. Then you go look at the Squire. The Squire is only +1 socketed gems, 8% of fizz taken as lightning damage. That's not too much money, right? That's not too bad. Then you go look at the Mage Blood, 25% crit multi, 15% all res. That's not too crazy, right? That ain't too shabby. And then his Obscurantes, +2 aura gems, socketed gems at 90% reservation. And of course, the Maryland's Fallacy is additional curse, so he can use LE weakness and he can use Assassin's Mark on the gloves. So then, of course, you have this thing. This is only like I think it's an 11 link weapon. So this weapon is different than the previous ones that we've seen in that it doesn't have the in-stacking mod because the in-stacking mod is not really useful. So it actually has lightning penetration, which is actually huge because it actually adds an additional link. This wand could technically be better if it is faster attacks on the last link, but that makes it insanely hard to get. And with that much attack speed already, faster attacks is actually not that big of a damage boost. Now, a lot of people might be wondering, how much is this profile actually cheating? And we're going to be able to get the real answer very soon, right? Once we look at it. So pretty much everything in the build is expensive. This is the TLDR, right? So why no cheating, right? Number one thing to see if the profile is cheating is how many passive points it has. And you can see here is 126 out of 123. So that's pretty normal, right? So it's because this is not someone really trying to cheat. This is just PoE Ninja and how it interacts with the API from PoE. In that PoE doesn't tell you how many points you have allocated in your cluster jewels. I have no idea why GGG does not update their API to help people out and show what cluster jewel points are actually allocated. I think it's actually kind of ridiculous at the moment, but it is what it is. So you can see here, it's 123 out of 123, and it's not too crazy, right? Next thing we want to look at is the flasks, of course, right? And you can see here, this person is using Mage Blood. If you were trying to cheat, you would never use a Mage Blood. You would obviously use a Darkness Enthroned because it gives you 2 Abyss Jewels, which is huge for the build. And he's not even using 5 unique flasks, right? So this profile could be much higher damage in cheating if you use 5 unique flasks and 1 Darkness Enthroned. And these unique flasks pretty much do nothing, or these magic flasks do very little for the actual damage compared to unique flasks, right? So he actually only has 1 unique flask of Cinder Swallow. So in addition, because he has this other precursors, which has 10% chance to gain a frenzy charge on hit, when you import over the profile, he doesn't even need to use the frenzy gem to get frenzy charges. So you can see here on the configuration, it already has built-in frenzy charges. And I don't know if you guys remember my previous videos in that I actually had to use the frenzy gem in order to get frenzy charges. So if you look at the mana here, this is another thing to keep out for. He actually has enough mana to cast a skill, which only costs 3 mana costs. And his auras are pretty normal. It's Summon Skitterbots, Purity of Fire, Wrath, and Enlighten. And he's running Elemental Weakness and Assassin's Mark as the curse. And the only thing that you can consider kind of like cheating is Hydra Spear, because with this amount of damage, you're pretty much never going to have the opportunity to put down Hydra Spear, right? But otherwise, you can keep up your Golem. You can do Mark on Hit, Sniper's Mark. And War Banner is another aura you have. Berserk, Shield Charge, Precision. The only thing that someone could ever say is that Berserk is not really up all the time. And Berserk is a huge chunk of the damage. But Berserk is also up a decent amount of time, especially if you take... So he doesn't actually take the Warbringer node, right? So he has Blitz Charges and Crave the Slaughter. So the only thing that you can say about the profile is that Berserk has very low uptime, but that's just up to PoE Ninja. And it's not really his fault for the amount of damage that he's getting from the profile. So what's the conclusions we can draw from this profile? Overall, this is definitely the case of if you have good enough gear and if you have enough time in the game and enough currency spent, the sky is the limit. I never really thought that 1 billion DPS would be possible. If you looked at the previous leagues for Power Siphon and how high the damage actually got up to be, you can see here that even with Scourge, Scourge was a much better league in terms of the min-max of builds because you got the Scourge mods, which are actually huge. So if you look at here, sort by DPS, the highest Power Siphon was 414 million last league. And this was an in-stacker. And you can see here that they actually had like some good Scourges, although he didn't really Scourge anything, right? So regardless, you see that this league, 1 billion DPS is almost like more than double of last league. So accuracy stacking Berserker is an absolutely crazy archetype. And another thing to note that's really interesting is that these profiles, because of divergent chance to bleed, it gives you a really good gem link. A lot of times you run out of gem links or multipliers, but what divergent chance to bleed actually does is it gives you more added damage, right? 20% more. So you can pretty much consider this as like 23% more added damage. And then once you factor in the Squire, which gives you plus 8% of quality of Saga to support gems, you can see here that this actually is a 32% DPS link of divergent chance to bleed, even though chance to bleed you would usually think it's just a chance, it's just additional bleeding damage, but it actually is a 32% more damage link for the build. And yeah, accuracy stacking Berserker is truly an insane, actually crazy build. And I was curious, right? So I swapped out like his Power Siphon for Kinetic Blast because I was actually curious, right? How much damage would his Kinetic Blast actually do? So you have the Kinetic Blast here and you swap this over to Awaken GMP, and boy, oh boy. I honestly wish I could try this build out in Simulacrums because 255 million and then 166 million explosion. That is absurd, right? 273 million combined DPS, not even factoring in the explosions. And yeah, this build could probably nearly one-shot Maven with, or two-shot or three-shot Maven with just KB alone. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that this opens your eyes to the true endgame potential of accuracy stacking with someone who actually has unlimited currency. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Blitz than me. And let me know down below if you want to see some Elden Ring content. I actually tried out the first boss, and I'm still stuck on him after 2,500 deaths. But see you next time. Bye.